You're watching Gearz, brought to you by LNC Truck. Keep them on the road.
Hey, welcome to Gearz and part 2 of our old number 7 Camaro project. Now, if you're just seeing this project for the first time, you're probably wondering, why in the world are you calling a new Camaro old number 7? That's a good question. And the reason is because the vast majority of you out there right now watching this show are driving a vehicle that's 10 years old or newer. And we get questions all the time from people going, what is the best things that I can do to a newer vehicle to make it better? So the purpose of old number 7 is to show you the top 7 things that you can do to a newer vehicle, car, truck, or SUV, to make it run better, drive better, perform better, to make it stand out in the crowd. Now, the first 3 things that we've already done are number 1, paint upgrades with custom graphics from Ape Wraps. Number 2, body modifications with carbon fiber parts from Anderson Composites. And number 3, interior upgrades with catskin leather. Now we're moving on to number 4, and that is engine performance, which means we're going to go under this hood and we're going to crank up the horsepower on this engine. And the best way to do that on a newer vehicle is with a supercharger. Take a look.
I'm a supercharger guy.
Any particular reason, or just?
For me and the couple of custom cars I have, I want them to sound good, and if somebody gives you the look and you feel like you need to stand on the gas, I just want to boil the tires for a while.
This is Edelbrock's E4 supercharger system, and it's designed to fit under your stock hood and deliver up to 600 horsepower and 550 foot-pounds on pump gas, yeah. And they build these for a lot of different vehicles, so this isn't just a Chevy thing. Now, obviously, the heart of the system is in this Eaton-style supercharger that sits right down in the lifter valley of the engine, so that's what gives you your super low profile. Then it blows the air up, and the air charge goes through these air-to-water intercoolers on either side, and then right down through the manifolds into the engine. Yeah, very cool system. And of course it comes with all of the hardware, the wiring harnesses, the pulleys, the air intakes, even the hoses that you're going to need to put this on, making this a true bolt-on system. This is how to put it in. The first step is to remove the ECM and pack it in the included shipping box and send it to Edelbrock to be reflashed. And once it comes back, just reinstall it and you're ready to roll. No tuning required. Next, we'll pull off the radiator shroud and the front fascia to give us proper access to the front of the car. Then we'll pull off the lower panel so we can get to the radiator petcock to drain the coolant. We'll follow that by pulling off the numerous hoses on the front of the engine, and the electric throttle body connector. Next, we'll remove the manifold cover and then disconnect the rest of the hoses and sensors and fittings from the engine. Finally, we'll unbolt the intake manifold and pull it off. With the manifold out of the way, it's always a good idea to tape over the intake ports so you don't accidentally drop something down in there while you're working on things like installing the new fuel line extension and modifying the foam valley insulator. Once that's done, the next step is to pull off the radiator hoses and remove the electric cooling fan. Okay, at this point, we're ready to remove the belts. Now, if you'll notice on the Camaro here, it's got 2 belts on it. The outer belt is your typical serpentine belt that comes off by releasing the tensioner. But this inner belt is a stretch belt. As you can see, there's no tensioner there. So, how do you get this on and off? Well, check it out.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
When it comes to engine accessories, the idea of the stretch belt is a fairly new concept. Now, at first glance, it looks a lot like your typical serpentine belt, except they're usually much smaller, and instead of using a tensioner to keep the belt tight, it is stretched to fit, which means putting one of these on and off can be a challenge, unless you have the right tool. Fortunately, the right tool is available. For example, this is a kit, and as you can see, it's just a plastic wedge to remove a belt, and another wedge to help you install a belt. What you do is set the tool on the pulley and then rotate the crank. The wedge lifts the belt and slides it on or off with no damage. This definitely beats trying to pry them off with a screwdriver, and once again shows how important it is to have the right tools before you start.
Restoring a vehicle. Done right, it can be one of the most rewarding things you can ever undertake. Done wrong, it can turn your life upside down. Shake the money out of your pockets and squeeze the sanity from your brain. Stacey David's Restoration Series is here to help you do it right, so you can keep your money and your sanity and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So grab a wrench and let's get cranking. Stacey David's Restoration Series, now streaming exclusively on Amazon Prime.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz and our supercharger install on the old number 7 Camaro project. Now, obviously, putting on a supercharger definitely represents engine and performance upgrades, which we have listed as number 4 in the top 7 things that you can do to a newer vehicle to make it really unique. Now, as you can see, we already have the manifolds in place and the new pulleys and the wiring harnesses are on, and it really doesn't look that much different, but it's about to, because now it's time to put the supercharger on. All right, with the blower in place, the last step is to make room for the heat exchanger. And it's going to keep that air charge cool, and it mounts down here in front. So we're going to pull off that crash bar, and then we're going to modify the side shrouds for the hoses. Next, we'll install the heat exchanger and run our hoses. From here on out, it's just a matter of installing the final hoses, hooking up the harnesses, and reassembling everything. And you're going to end up with a low-profile supercharger that looks like a factory option, and it's going to run with anything on the road. Now, another couple of things that's good to do to any engine, especially something you just put a supercharger on, is to upgrade to some E3 spark plugs. And this will give you the ability to take full advantage of all that extra air-fuel mixture you're going to be getting. Now, another thing is to upgrade to some modern engine oil. Now, I know you're thinking, oil's oil, right? No, these modern engines have an issue with carbon buildup. And Valvoline just came out with a modern engine oil to help solve that problem. And it's a good thing too, because you don't want to spend the money putting on a supercharger and have your engine die due to bad oiling. All right, with engine performance out of the way, we move on to number 5, the exhaust system. Now, upgrading your exhaust system is a good idea because it not only can give you more power, but it can definitely give you a better sound, which is kind of one of the main reasons you have a cool car truck, right? Right. Now, the SS Camaro, it's got a decent exhaust system on it, but it can be better. It can always be better. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is Hooker's Blackheart dual mode exhaust system for the Camaro SS, and as you can see, it's got a polished stainless steel transverse muffler and 4 tips. And if you'll notice, these outer tips have a little butterfly valve in them that opens and closes depending on where your throttle position is. So the way this works, when you're tooling around town, you want everything quiet, the exhaust runs here through the muffler and out through the inner tips, giving you the sound and the flow that you want. But when you open up that throttle, these outer valves open and the exhaust bypasses the muffler and goes right out those outer tips, giving you even more sound and more performance like you want. Yeah, this is a cool system. Here's how it goes in. According to Hooker's measurements, cut the stock exhaust pipes 2 inches back from the rear crossmember and remove the stock muffler and exhaust tips. Next, transfer the stock rubber mounts and aluminum brackets onto the new system. Next, mount the new muffler assembly into the car.
If you've got a cool project and would like to show millions of other gearheads what you're working on, you need to join Gearz Nation. This is a free, interactive online community of auto enthusiasts that will allow you to learn from, share with, and encourage others, and at the same time, show off your project. There are also premium memberships available for access to special merchandise and the entire Gearz catalog. If you're into mechanical things, you're welcome on Gearz Nation. And who knows, you might even see your project on TV.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz and the final steps of our old number 7 Camaro. Now, with engine performance taken care of and exhaust taken care of, we're down to number 6 of the top 7 things that you can do to a newer vehicle: suspension.
I like to cruise,
Yeah.
you know, so I would say something a little softer and,
Yeah.
you know, a little better ride quality.
So you don't want a race car on the street.
For me, no. I have that outlet, you know.
Sure.
So I'm more about ride quality, and I want my wife to hop in the car and enjoy driving it. I do have some other cars that aren't so ride focused,
Yeah.
and she won't get in them. Like,
Okay.
hey babe, let's take this to the hamburger stand. She's like, no, it's too rough.
And this is where you need to be careful, because there's companies out there like BMR Suspension that offer all kinds of stuff for the Camaro. And if you're not careful, you can put the wrong suspension in for the way you're going to use the car. For example, if the car is mostly street driven, they've got these non-adjustable rear trailing arms and control arms. They have this strut brace. They've got larger front and rear sway bars. All of this will take your suspension to the next level, be great on the street, and still give you some fun on the track. However, if you want to go to the next level, you can get fully adjustable rear trailing arms and control arms. They have cradle braces. They've got different bushing kits for the rear cradle. Man, you can turn that car into a serious track monster. So you need to choose wisely. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it needs to go on the car. Now, since this car is more street driven, we're going to go with this street performance package because it's a great bang for the buck. Springs and shocks are another thing to look at when you're dealing with suspension. And once again, there's companies out there like Eibach that have all kinds of different spring choices, different heights, different spring rates, so you can really dial in your suspension for the way you're going to drive the car. Shocks, the same thing. These are Viking dual adjustable shocks for the rear of the Camaro. And notice you can adjust your compression and rebound separately, so you can really dial in the car. Now, this might be a little overkill for a car that you're driving every day, but if you're going to ever venture out on the track, you might want to think about this. The magic of this BMR suspension is that it bolts right in place of the stock pieces, so installation is really simple. All right, that brings us to number 7, brakes, wheels, and tires. And this isn't just for looks.
If you're going to upgrade the engine, you've got to put some brakes on it. So I definitely agree with that.
So we're going to upgrade those stock front brakes with this Willwood Aero-Lite brake kit for the Camaro. Now these feature a massive 15-inch rotor and an equally impressive 6-piston caliper. Then of course you've got all the hardware and brackets to put it in. The best part is though, this bolts right in place of your stock brakes. So let's get them on. Now, the stock Camaro wheels aren't bad, they're just stock. We want something a lot more unique than this. So we went to Weld Racing and got a set of these S77 wheels. Now these are a very cool, incredibly strong forged wheel that we got with a polished rim and the charcoal coating on the spokes to accent the look of the car. For size, we're using a 20x9 on the front and pushing to a 20x10.5 on the rear. And we're wrapping those wheels with a set of Nitto high-performance NT 555 G2 tires to give us increased traction and handling capabilities to control the extra power, handling, and braking that we've added. On the front is a 275 30/20, and on the rear is a 305 30/20. And that's it, old number 7. A great example of the top 7 areas to modify on a newer vehicle to make it stand out from anything else out there on the road. And those top 7 things, again, in no particular order, are number 1, paint modifications. Number 2, body modifications. Number 3, interior upgrades. Number 4, engine and performance modifications. Number 5, exhaust. Number 6, suspension. And number 7, brakes and wheels and tires. And the best part is, you can have a car just like this, but you can't buy it. You gotta build it. You know, one of the first true freedoms you experience as a kid is that first bicycle. Man, it becomes your transportation to the world, or at least the local neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, man, we all had bikes. And we'd stick playing cards in the spokes, and we'd suck on black licorice, make it look like we were big biker dudes, and it was magic. But a bike wasn't just about transportation. No, it became an extension of your personality. And there were all kinds of bikes out there. There were 10 speeds, there were mountain bikes, there were Stingrays, there were BMX bikes, and they all had their strengths and weaknesses. And that's where the idea for the story of the purple bicycle came from. Because just like a bike might wish it had the talents or skills of another bike, so do we sometimes overlook our God-given talents and wish we had somebody else's talents, skills, color, abilities because they seem to be better than ours. It's a simple story. It's a simple lesson, but something we all need to be reminded of from time to time.
And now, Parts Bin.
In the quest to find a great project vehicle, man, it is hard to beat a classic truck because they're still affordable and they're really cool. But they do have some limitations, especially if you want to put a stick shift in one of them. Matter of fact, Ford guys have been waiting a long time for a viable 5 or 6-speed transmission option. Fortunately, the wait is over because American Powertrain has come out with these ProFit transmission kits for putting a standard shift transmission into a 67 through 79 Ford truck. These feature either the Tremec TKO 5-speed or the Magnum 6-speed, complete with an adjustable revolution shifter, as well as an adjustable cross member, bell housing, hydraulic release bearing, and all the hookups and hardware. It even comes with a new drive shaft and fiberglass tunnel hump, so there's no guesswork or hacking. You just bolt it in. If you're ready to slam some gears in a classic truck, American Powertrain has got the kits that will make that possible. Most people would like to convert their carburetor to fuel injection. Most people don't do it because they don't want to mess with putting a fuel pump in their fuel tank. Well, Holley has a solution for that in what they call their OEM-style fuel module for putting fuel injection on a classic muscle car. Take a look at this. Notice it's got the fuel pump here, then it also has the sending unit and the pickup tube all in one unit. You just slide it in the tank and that's it. But it gets better than that. Notice that there's only one line coming out, no return. That's because the return and the regulator are right here inside the tank. So you don't have to run an extra fuel line, mount an external regulator, nothing. You just put this in, hook it up, and you're ready to go. Which once again shows how Holley is making fuel injection attainable for everybody.
And now, what are you working on? Brought to you by Brush Hero, the ultimate detail brush.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Robert Camissa from Modesto, California, and he's working on a project with his 15-year-old son, Bradley. Now, he says that his son worked all summer on a almond and cherry ranch, and he had $800 burning a hole in his pocket. So his son picked up this, a 1973 Dodge W100 four-wheel drive truck. That's a great project to start with, man. Now, he said that Brad learned to weld by replacing the rusty floors, and now they're slowly rebuilding the mechanicals with parts that they're finding at the local salvage yards. So they're keeping this a low-budget thing, and they're doing all the work themselves. Now, Robert says it's slow going, but they're slowly knocking it out. And he said Brad plans to put on a 4-inch lift and 35s and finish out the bodywork and paint the truck. Man, that is a great project for a 15-year-old. I'm glad that you're teaching him some skills. So what we're going to do is give you some more tools to teach him some more skills. So we hooked up with our buddies at Brush Hero. We're going to give you this whole detailing kit. Now this is the towels, the hardware, the brushes, everything that you're going to need right down to the bag to kind of start your own detailing business, which would be awesome. We're also going to give you one of our Gearz t-shirts because you're obviously a gearhead. And then we're going to set you up with one of our project planning books so you can keep track of everything that you're doing to that project, and it'll keep you on budget. Also, we're going to give you one of our wiring books, so when you wire that truck, you'll know how to do it, and the purple bicycle, because everybody needs to laugh from time to time. Also, since you're working on a truck, we hooked up with our buddies at LMC Truck, and we're going to give you a gift card that'll help offset the cost of some of that project. All right, that wraps it up for us today, which means that it's time for you to get out there and start cranking on some wrenches. We'll see you next time.